It's another edition of the Market Review where we discuss the financial and capital market activities as it ties to the economy. And of course, you know that will have a big impact on the populace in Nigeria. Nigeria remains Africa's most populous nation, so anything that has to do with finance, money, and empowerment is very critical at this time. We're going to look at one interesting segment of the financial and capital market, which is evolving. It needs to drive, it needs to scale, and it needs to play big at the international level. And that's the private equity market. We want to look at the review of first quarter activities for 2021 in the private equity market in Nigeria. We need to have this conversation is Mr. Joseph Agunbiade. He is the founder of Univelcity. Nice to have you for the year. I know we have these conversations last year, several on private equity. Nice to have you back.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Good evening.
And a very nice setup for today's conversation.
Thank you.
This is what we call innovation, innovative approach. Yes. So, I mean, private equity, of course, the pandemic came up in 2020 and really had its impact. I'm looking globally now. Canada Venture Capital Association released a report that they had a law in terms of the activity. It wasn't as massive as 2019 as expected because of the impact of the pandemic. But also, this is a market that is $3.9 trillion in terms of asset under management. And North America and of course Asia are the major leaders. Africa still needs to come on. But when we look at this space, there's interesting stories in Nigeria. The first quarter of 2021, we've seen developments around Flutterwave. We've also seen what has happened even with Bankley, just raising over $2 million, and also Paystack. For you, what has been the standout developments for this first quarter in the private equity market in Nigeria?
Of course, the biggest deal is Flutterwave, and that basically shows that confidence is being restored, investors' confidence is being restored to investing in our market here, and and that has been followed by a couple. In fact, at the beginning of the year, I think Ulesson started the investment cycle, followed by a couple of other guys who have raised money. And so you will see that what I've been telling people is largely what I think is the success of what happened from Paystack, the returns on investment. A couple of weeks ago, people got paid. The investors got their money back. And for those who came in via syndicates, people were, you see everywhere, people were just braggadosing. And it just shows that people are getting more confident in what is happening right in our market. So that's what I would say that is, basically driving the interest we are beginning to see, especially in this first quarter. Flutterwave was a big deal for me because the deal means a whole lot. And you see that there was a quick succession. After they closed the deal, they also had one of the biggest partnership ever in fintech in Nigeria, with partnership with PayPal. So for me, it's beyond just raising the money. I mean, it's becoming part of an ecosystem that is really so big as PayPal. That is journey starts way back as from X.com in 1999 at the peak of the .com bubble. So it's an interesting journey so far for us. I must say, especially looking at Flutterwave. They literally eclipsed most of the deals by what they did to becoming a unicorn.
Interesting fact is they're even looking at the possibility of an IPO in the New York Stock Exchange. You know that's one place that we need to see Nigerian companies.
I tell you, I know what follows. Secondary market sales and all that. I'm just so excited. Like under how many years? 6 years.
Yes.
It's such a crazy success story, which it's something that in years to come we'll remember as being a turning point. I think the biggest turning point was Paystack acquisition
by Stripe.
I believe would have with Stripe. If you look at it, it's such an interesting relationship. So two global giants, Stripe acquired Paystack, and then they are part of the ecosystem. Flutterwave now partner with PayPal. So basically, our two upcoming fintech startup are now part of a very large global ecosystem.
Global market. which is the dream for any
major big
sector.
which we're going to see in next couple of months and years happening to other part of fintech and probably other industry.
And Joseph, this also speaks to the S&P reports for June 2020 activities, where he talked about the fact that the ICT and the healthcare attracted most of the activities. ICT was about 51% of activities and healthcare 42%. Does that also relates even to like Nigeria? Last year, I know that a lot of things happened around fintech, ICT, and even the health tech or health-based companies. Is that the reality though?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear. I mean, fintech followed by most things, of course, are tech-led, and fintech is taking the lead. Healthcare with the Evercare investment, which is also part of a global network.
Recently, one commission in Lagos.
Yes, over 160 beds hospital in Lekki. It's such a massive
infrastructure. Is
to drive it. So it is interesting. And then even EdTech. EdTech is huge because look at what ULSN has done. $7.5 billion is away from what we are used to. I think it was led by TLCom.
That's the former minister or the pioneer minister of the Information and Communication Technology Ministry. Yes, Omobola Johnson. Yeah.
That trend is becoming really interesting.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in more head tech, last year when we talked about Helium raising, I think about $10 million in their seed round.
There was 54 Gene too. I got some.
Said
54 Gene.
54. Yes, we talk about 54 Gene and see what they are doing with the COVID-19.
Yes.
Flying doctors. I've seen some of her report. I can't remember exactly now, but she's done a whole lot also investment in that aspect, and being able to raise some private fundings too. So it's such an interesting pattern or trend, I must say, that we are seeing in our market here in Nigeria.
No, definitely. I mean, it's interesting and it shows that there's good opportunity to leverage this. And this speaks again to Nigeria being a leading destination for attracting private capital. Recently, there was a conversation hosted by one of the business chambers in the country, and speakers highlighted the need for more research and also the need for partnerships between entrepreneurs or SMEs with potential investors who have patient capital. I know you've talked about the need for more due diligence, but the place of research and the place of that partnership for patient capital is also something that must be integrated in the conversations to get more of these interesting deals and prospects.
So on talking about that, what you will see is chief among the investors now, starting from last year majorly, you see second time from also themselves becoming investors.
Yes.
They are becoming a key part of this investment, from pre-seed to seed round. And what will happen eventually, like what you see abroad from like people like Mark Adrensi and all those Peter Thiel and co, who eventually by themselves became the king in investment, is what we're going to start seeing. So we're going to start seeing investment from this second time founders, even in Series A and all of those kind of things as the money grows. I mean, just imagine founders in part of Flutterwave founders, the kind of deep pocket that we have now.
Yeah.
Recently, I think there was an investment this week. I can't remember anymore now. That
Bankly and Flutterwave, there's about $2 million plus. Bankly, that's a amazing.
Absolutely. That's huge. I even Paystack founder, being part of an investment.
Yeah.
You see Paga, Tayo Vyosu also investing.
A lot here.
Getting interesting. Now, what will happen is that for you who have benefited from patient capital, it is expected of you to also be patient with your own capital. So it's going to get interesting. This first quarter has shown that it's going to get really interesting. As a matter of fact, this year, the projection is that any number that you can spin off as we speak right now of what has happened this quarter is not enough. That we should wait for another few days that before the end of this March, a lot of magic might still happen, interestingly. So I'm super excited. Quick, which is, the logistic company, KWIK, they also just, in logistics and all of that. So it's getting more and more really interesting. What we are seeing, yes.
No, definitely, and I mean, there's a lot to look out for. I mean, I like what you're saying, that we can't quickly put a number to it, but we can see the trends. I mean, the interesting stories, which again shows that Nigeria, with the right kind of skills, the right kind of potentials, will attract investments amidst the challenges. But I'm looking at how this can be channeled to women entrepreneurs and general entrepreneurs, because you know that we also need to address the challenge of poverty. We need to make people wealthy to the level they can create more jobs. I mean, look at China. There's this company just came over and is going to list on the IPO in New York. And this is China that 10, 15, or 20 years ago, they were like poverty-stricken, but transformation has come. We've seen so many companies benefiting from patient capital and private investments. And we look at preparing them in terms of going through that cycle of investments. Like you rightly said before, they have to understand the cycle to be effective.
Absolutely. So we need to, as patient capital comes now, investments now, I mean, we have fewer discrimination. You've seen that most investment so far has been led by male. We have PiggyVest, we have Bankley, is the co-founder is also a female. We are getting more and more female co-founders. In fact, people are getting the memo that if you are running a startup and you don't have a female co-founder, it might just be. And I think that's an interesting thing. You see, institutional investors insisting that you must have, female in your team. You have people. Yeah. It's becoming a thing, and we have to be deliberate about it. To generally bring the money to the table to support our female entrepreneurs. It takes a whole lot if you understand how it is for female to actually come boldly and say you want to run a startup. People think that it's not beans, when it comes to the startup scene. You've read a lot of stories, you must have read a lot of stories about, Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley, yeah, and it's the way it treats the women entrepreneurs, yeah.
And all of that. So, in our market, people are not even as transparent. We are still sort of close to, we're still crude.
We're getting better.
Start hearing the story of females who try to raise money, you'll be amazed at what they will say. But I must commend the investors that who are taking this bold step to ensure that they give preference to female-led startups. And that's because also we are having people who are investors or who are leading some of these investment firms who are females themselves. Yeah. So the more we get that kind of thing, we're going to get more of them participating in raising this money. And of course, it's been proven that females are very good managers. Yeah. So if we want rapid growth and all that, we need to actually actively get them. And for those who are so afraid, we need to start challenging them to go out there. Don't just stay in your corner. Try out, looking for venture money, grow whatever it is that is in your hand, and actively be a part of it. That is a challenge to females who might be watching us. Don't just stay in your corner. Take the bold step to ask. You'll be amazed at what can come when you.
Yeah, I mean, this is very important. So for our country, the environment, but let's go to the capital market. And part of the conversation again among stakeholders in the private industry is that developing that PE market to that level that can generate revenue and decent earnings for investors. You talked about the fact that people are just getting their returns. I mean, it's really an interesting time. So a deliberate effort, which last year we saw capital market players come together to discuss private equity, but not just discussing it, consistently working this ecosystem to drive this industry.
So what I would say to that is that I think they are comparing our market with global markets. These people, these private equity investors, they are looking more at the numbers, the minimum barriers they've set is just too high. Yeah. Our market is different. I can't take so much money when the problem I'm trying to solve, through the phases of, growth and all of that, is kind of not as big. The market, it's a gradual market that you take, either for existing companies who are struggling to, who want PE money, or even the much smaller startups. So what I think is that the barrier to entry, they have to bring it low, such that more people, you can't set and say, oh, you can only do the minimum investment you can do is $100 million and all of that. So we need them to come down. And last year, we started seeing that we are seeing more and more PE money coming down, low, and all of that. You won't see the international players bringing in even much smaller money into our market. So I'll say that in our capital, we need to play more in that, learn from these guys and lower the barrier so that more people can raise money, and don't set a very high barrier, because of course, the higher the money, the higher the return. You know what it is. So if they look more from that perspective and lower the barrier to raising money, I think we'll get more players. So imagine a situation where you want to, I understand the fact that, okay, when you give money, you have to also give them support. But if that's what it takes for you to share $100 million across 10 companies at $10 million, and if that's what it takes, I think we should do it. It's cheaper for you to put in the personnel. I mean, I'm not saying so cheap, but we need to develop the market. For you to reap benefit of a particular market, you must develop it first. And we must understand that you can't keep saying that, oh, the market size is too small, the market size is too small. And what are you doing to develop it? So the few guys who are lowering the barrier, reducing the amounts that they set as their minimum investment, and we need more of those kind of people. And the more we do that, then the easier we'll get people, we'll create the market. And in no time, the way this thing works, it is not that long. It happens so fast. And then market is created, more money is raised. Then you start having more people who are raising like crazy 100 million, even $500 million, $1 billion in our market. So that is what I think is a more pragmatic approach.
Very, very nice to know, because like you rightly said, once the barrier to entry is lower, it helps to attract more of these funds, and it's very important. And I guess that the Securities and Exchange Commission, the apex regulator of the market, will look at that with other key operators to see how we can really gain a lot, like you said, in this regard from the capital market. But let's wrap up this very interesting conversation. Let's look at, again, a policy and regulatory approach to attracting more private capital, where PEs come in, support companies who can in turn transform the economy, like in the words of a very notable investor and philanthropist, Mr. Tony Lumelu. If we can, the way to transform Africa is through entrepreneurship. And this is one of the things that private equity companies drive. So we have political economic institutions, it needs clarity. We have currency fluctuations, we have insecurity, and lack of adequate infrastructure. Looking at these four rates, what are those areas that quickly needs to be addressed? Are there improvements in the four that has been raised? Where are the areas or gaps that need to be sorted out so that we can really attract more, because there's huge potential, like you said.
I love the fact that government is doing a lot to support infrastructural, investments. So that a lot has been invested in infrastructure, both power and other sort of infrastructure, which is the bedrock, for every other organization and all of that. Now, as this is done, we can even get more institutional investors from outside our shores. They'll have more confidence, because when they see what the bulk of the money they are giving companies is going into, most times they are discouraged. When you look at the books of companies, it's always very discouraging. And so policy-wise, with what we have from supporting institutions that federal government is giving support to at lower rates and all of that, it is getting interesting, but it's too low, the total money that is available. And then when you look at the number of people who are able to access some of this infrastructural fund at the end of the year, I think that the policy should go beyond just putting it on paper and be pragmatic. Make it a transparent thing. Mandate that most of the funds that are available in some of these infrastructural funds should be, used up, with targets that are clearly stated. Let more investment come to infrastructure area and all of that, because it's when we have infrastructure, they are going to have more people who are willing to invest in, a much more, other more interesting, sector. So I think that's what we need most times when it comes to policy. Talking about currency fluctuation, you know how it is now. These people, they know what it, they know. I'm always very careful to talk about this part because I don't think it's rocket science.
At least you have a guide that we say managed FX floating regime that we have for central bank.
Well managed, float it, do the right things. Let people not. Every time people are scared, basically because of currency fluctuations. So I believe that in that aspect we need to do more.
So you're floating it. You want it to be floated.
Well, I'm not taking a position, to be sincere. Okay. I'm not. I won't say I'm the best financial.
Okay. Okay. All right. I will put you on that spot.
But I just think that we need to look at best practice, what fits our market, and just do it. And let's investors have that confidence to know that okay, I won't come in here and in the next couple of months or years I'll be bankrupt. So we need to do that. And it looks like we're just favoring certain people, making certain people richer, by these policies. So that needs to be fixed and corrected immediately. It's a key thing, a problem that we must solve. I don't like commenting on this.
So definitely, I'll take you off that, but at least you've given a very clear thing. We need something that drives investor confidence and what also helps in terms of best practices. So those two are good enough in that regard. But in ramping up this conversation, what are one or two words you have to say going beyond first quarter about the PE market?
So if you have money and you're keeping it, one of the things you must have seen this Q1 is that we're having more syndicates, people coming together and creating funds to invest. CC Hub syndicates, they invested in I think Steers. It's getting interesting because these are things that we dreamed about. So it's like it looks so far away and it's beginning to happen.
Yeah.
So, and if you have funds, you don't know where to put it. There are syndicates that the barrier to entry is very low. Things like CC Hub syndicates and a couple of the popular ones around, be a part of it. And if you have what it takes, create one, and let's get moving very fast. Stop keeping. Your money is just wasting anyway. People try to keep their money in dollars, and they're not, but you can actually make multiple of whatever it is that you have right now. So I would say that more people need to put their money to work. Stop complaining that your relative don't have a job, your child doesn't have a job, and you have a lot of money keeping there. It's going to actually get worse for your grandchildren. If you have so much money, you are complaining. Stop complaining. Get your money to work, because that money, when it's put properly to proper use, jobs will be created, and then the future of Africa will be secured and guaranteed. So I think that's the word I will leave to as many people who's got, who are the money bags and they are keeping the money and just watching it, leaving it in dollars, just for the gains alone.
Blackstone, Carlyle, and Sequoia Capital, those are three examples of how people came together, put in funds, and have helped to raise remarkable companies. So this word is to all our big local investors, Nigerian money bags. It's time to also come on board, work together to help raise world-class enterprises through private equity funding. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Agunbiade. Always nice to discuss with you around the private equity market space and how we can grow it. Founder of Univelcity. Wishing you all the best also as you continue in your activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah, that's the conversation today on the market review. You want to know more about what's happening in the private equity space, go on to our website, www.prochange.com, in the right hand of the bar. Click on it, you'll see developments in the private equity space. Just click on that, you see all the latest reports and stories around the industry. Also in this period, we want to remind you that if you have any comments or questions around developments in the private equity market space, you can send your views and comments or questions to news@prochange.com. Already, first quarter 2021 has been interesting. There are no prospects ahead. Don't forget that you have to stay safe this period. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.